Hello, everyone, and welcome back to People Do Want to Know podcast. I'm back with another bonus drop episode, our cozy little coffee break chats, and this one is actually featuring a giveaway winner, Hadar Baron. When I was up for the Z3 award, I did a giveaway incentivizing people to vote, and one of the prizes was a feature on the podcast. Today, you'll get to meet the woman who won that portion of the giveaway. Hadar is a New York City-based singer, actress, songwriter, and musician. She moved to America from Israel at 9 years old and immediately jumped into American performance opportunities. She has experiences in both musical theater and pop rock performances, and she's held roles in Smile the Musical, Legally Blonde, Little Shop of Horrors, Rent, Rockers on Broadway, and most recently, she played Carole King in Beautiful, the Carole King musical. Hadar invited me to see her in that show, and I'm so sad I didn't go. I just ran out of time, but I really wanted to see it. When she's not on stage, Hadar can be found following the latest social media trends, hanging out with her dog, and traveling the world. I'm really excited for you to hear her story. What I loved about our conversation is I finally got to speak to someone who also immigrated to America at roughly the same time and exact same age as me. So we got to bond over our immigration experiences and trauma. And let me tell you, it is humbling to immigrate to America. No matter how long I will live here, and no matter how many times people will say that I don't have any accent, I will always feel like an immigrant. Immigration, culture shock, people's disapproval, people's misunderstanding, it becomes like embedded into the deepest parts of your psyche. And I don't want to say that it defines you, but I do totally think it like shifts your brain a little bit. I think immigration was one of the hardest experiences of my life, if not the hardest so far. And I can guarantee you that any immigrant you speak to, and I'm not talking about the millionaires who immigrate from one life of comfort to another, I'm talking about immigrants who are roughing it. I assure you, they will also say that immigration is like a top 5 hardest life moments for them. We talk about Jews being resilient, and of course we are. But I'd like to highlight that perhaps that quality is informed by our immigrations or fleeing from one place to the next, and our reality of never staying in one place too long. I am honored to be an immigrant. No matter how hard it was, I would choose to have this experience again and again and again. It made me a hardworking person. It made me a compassionate person. It made me a fighter. And I really appreciated the chance to talk to Hadar, who has internalized this as well. For how deep my rant just was, I have to tell you that our conversation with Hadar is an easy, fast listen. Of course, you'll get to hear about immigration, but you'll also hear about the colorful career Hadar has built, and specifically her experience playing Carole King. Carole is an icon and also a people you want to know, and I enjoyed learning about how Hadar thought about playing her. Please enjoy this episode. Hello, Hadar. Welcome to People Do Want to Know podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to chat with you. Following you on social media has been nothing short of a delight. I love your work. I love seeing the plays and the theater that you participate in, and I'm excited to dig in more today. Tell us about yourself. What do you do, and how did you get there?
I was born in Israel. I moved to the States when I was 9 years old with my family. And then ever since I got here, I've just been diving into the arts, whether that's music or theater or acting or all of the above. And so my life really revolves around music. I have a day job in the music industry, and then I do theater and I make my own music. So I'm just doing everything arts possible, and obviously doing that as a Jewish performer, as a Jewish person, somebody who was born in Israel. That delves a lot into what I do and influences the kind of art that I make. And now more than ever, creates a whole new, almost like sphere around what I do and how I behave in the industry, which is interesting. But yeah, that's, I guess, basically it.
Tell me a little bit about your immigration experience. I also immigrated to America when I was 9 years old. So we both immigrated at the same
Yeah.
exact age. What was it like for you?
Yeah, I was 9. We moved to Florida at first. We lived there for, I think, 2 years. I mean, I don't think I really understood that I was moving to a big new country and leaving my life behind. Like, in hindsight, that sounds like a huge move. And I mean, it was, but I don't think I understood it that way. I think I was just like, okay, we're here now. The first few months of being in a school in America where there weren't a lot of other Hebrew speakers or a big Jewish community where we lived, I just didn't understand what was being said to me and I couldn't really communicate. I had very, very basic English knowledge. And so for a while there, I was just like not understanding what people were saying to me and they weren't understanding me. And we were just there. And then after like, I guess 2 or so months, it just clicked and I started speaking English and I made friends and I started talking to people. So in that sense, it was pretty smooth because I never noticed the difference. But as I grew up and continued immersing in the culture, you start recognizing the differences in the culture. But I don't know. I mean, you tell me you also had the same experience being 9, like it's a very on the cusp age. I remember all my life before in Israel, but I also could say that most of my life I've been here now. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Do you think you're too American for the Israelis now?
I always say, whenever I speak to Israelis or when I'm in Israel, they always say that I'm the American. And when I'm here, I'm known as the Israeli, right? So, like, what am I? I mean, I'm both. I think I have a lot of Israeli spice and chutzpah in me and a lot of culture in me. And I think I also have a lot of the American, well rounded polishedness. And I know how to pick and choose when to use each of those. So I think I am a pretty good mixture of both.
So you asked me what I thought of my immigration experience. I'll tell you that recently, I don't know how, but I somehow got on this side of TikTok where it's Ukrainian immigrants who came on Biden's U for You program and their experience in America now. And so there's one woman I follow who has maybe a 12-year-old son, and they live in North Dakota, and he goes to school there, and he begs her to do a specific hairstyle for him every day. Like she has to use a straightener to curl his hair a certain way. And how different hair and like norms are around fashion and being a teenager in America versus Ukraine. And then there's another girl on TikTok that I follow. She's got to be maybe 14 or 15, and she's a track runner. And she had this video that went viral. All of her content's in Russian. And she had talked about how she gets very stressed going to school and phones are strictly forbidden. And one time she was like really not having a good day at school and she wanted her mom to pick her up, and her phone was obviously like taken away. Every day they drop off their phones in this basket, and she had an Apple Watch, and she tried to quietly tell her mom on her Apple Watch like, "Mom, please pick me up," and she got in a lot of trouble with the
God.
teacher. And this is exactly the kind of stuff that happened to me when I was growing up. My parents gave me a flip phone and were like, if anything happens, you need to call us. And I was like, well, mom and dad, phones are forbidden from school. They're like, we don't care, just hide it. Like, if you need to call us, go to the bathroom and call us. And I remember, like, one of my first weeks at school, I wanted to go home or was stressed or something. And my phone fell out of my pocket. And the teacher found it and was like, whose phone is this? And I got in so much trouble. It's so crazy how, like, 20 plus years later or whatnot, it's the same things are happening to kids, even though our technology landscape has changed, our educational landscape has changed. And this idea of being too Ukrainian for the Americans and too American for the Ukrainians, it's never going to go away for me. I don't know about you, but it's always going to be the case. And I have the privilege of being able to straddle both spaces, but I often wonder how other people perceive me. There's nothing I can do about it. That's just how it's going to be. But I'm cognizantly aware that I never quite fit into either space neatly.
Yeah, I have the same experience, and I've talked to a lot of friends who are in the same boat of having been born there and having lived here, or vice versa, and going back and forth. And there's always that feeling of my heart is always never in one place. My heart is always split between two places. That poses a difficulty. That poses like you never feel 100% in one place, and you're always longing for another place. But also, it's beautiful because you're immersed in these two cool cultures. You've experienced and seen both of these places and these different ways of life, and you can kind of pick and choose what of that you want to immerse your own lifestyle in. And I think that's cool. I try to look at the positive side and not dwell into how sad it is sometimes, but I definitely get it. And it's funny, the story you were mentioning about like the phone stuff, because I remember having a similar story when I first moved to America. And like, you know, you're young and you're used to like a specific culture of school and what school is like as a kid. And when I was living in Israel, like school is not a joke, but like it operates so differently. I remember, you know, in America you sit in rows and you have your little desk and there's like maybe 20 kids per teacher in a classroom, and it's very strict and it's very formal, and you sit there and you learn. And in Israel, we had like little clumps of desks with 5 or 6 kids per little clump, and everyone would just be chatting all the time. And it was so social, and it was so like you could pass notes and you could talk to each other. And if the teacher was talking, then like the teacher's talking, but like we can talk. And again, like not that that is a good way of learning, but which is another, I mean, I can talk about this later, but I went back to Israel and I volunteered there for a year with kids in a school. And so I experienced it on the other hand. But as a kid, you're like, well, I have a lot of freedom here and I can chat with my buddies and it's not a big deal. And I mean, this was what, fourth grade. So like you're very aware. And I got to America and I started like passing notes. I wrote a love note declaring my love for this guy I had a crush on in fourth grade, my first American crush. And I passed him a note, and the teacher saw it and she took it and she snatched it and she read it out loud to the entire class in front of me. Like, it was so embarrassing. I would never have done that if I knew that was going to be what would happen and if I knew that it was so frowned upon. But I came from this culture of everything is so chill and relaxed, and like, what's the worst that could happen? That I never even once thought I could be made into this like social pariah because of this. But yeah, that was funny.
That's a traumatic experience, honestly. Like, it's funny now, but I'm sure in the moment
Yeah,
that was like the end of the world. So I
it was the
totally
worst.
empathize.
Yeah, and that was the very beginning of my time there too. So it was like, oh, now I'm always going to be known as the girl who wrote a love note. But I mean, it's pretty on brand for me now when I write songs like that.
Talk to me a little bit about what the last 2 years have been for you, like as a Jewish artist, as an Israeli artist. What do you make of these last 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, being an artist in America with the history that I have and who I am, the past 2 years has been different. It has not been the easiest route, but I found myself having to navigate situations that I never thought that I would have to. As a Jew, you grow up learning and hearing all these stories about how people have been ostracized for being Jewish. And you think, well, that was history. How could people have acted like that? Like, that's so far gone. And then slowly but surely, you see it seeping into your day to day. And I remember being at a gig and I was working with like musicians for my own band, for my own music stuff. And we went to this gig that one of the people in the band was performing in another band. And I met all of the other band members and they were so incredible. And I was like, oh, I want to make music with you guys. And that's how it works in the industry. Like, you meet musicians through musicians and you just say like, hey, let's jam sometime. And like, that's just how it goes. Like, he's like, yeah, grab my Instagram, we'll hang out. And I like go to his Instagram and I see that it's full of like free Palestine, Gaza, like anti-Israel. And it's like, oh, he's not going to want to work with me. And we probably wouldn't be a good match to work together. And that was, I think, maybe like a year or so after October 7th. And at that point, I was so exhausted from having spoken to so many people and trying to like explain what was going on and explain myself and trying to get people to just like have a conversation that I didn't even bother following up with that person because I knew it was going to be messy. But it made me like really think about, okay, well, if I'm going to make music with people, if I'm going to bring my own artistry, like my own songs that I wrote from the bottom of my heart, I don't want to be afraid that these people are going to be thinking that I don't deserve to live or don't deserve to have a homeland, or that my country where I was born shouldn't exist, or that my family who lives there should all be kicked out or be killed, or that my friends who were at Nova deserved what happened. You know what I mean? Like, it's when you start getting into spaces where you can be intentional about who you surround yourself with. I have found that since October 7th, the criteria of my circle has gotten more specific. Of course, you don't have to agree on everything with everyone. And there are certain instances where you can't choose, like at work or something like that. But when it comes to my artistry and my friends and things like that, yeah, I've had to be a lot more intentional. I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people in the industry, musicians, people that I went to college with, people that I used to live with and see every day in college. and I try to have the conversations, and I try to give resources and articles and from my own experience, and as someone whose family left Israel because of the Intifada. Like, that's not the one main reason. There was like my dad's job and all that, but my mom always tells me about how life was when we lived there, and I was a kid and maybe I didn't notice, but there were bombings and attacks all the time. And that was a part of the reason that it was getting more and more attractive to leave. And people don't care. And that's the saddest part, is this industry, it's wonderful and I love it and I love the arts and I love everything that we stand for. But sometimes people can get blinded by the all or nothing mentality, and it's hard to even get them to have a conversation. But even when you do have the conversation, sometimes it's not very fruitful. It's been difficult. Yeah.
The maximalist mindset of people who have never met Israelis and who don't understand the humanity of Israeli people who had to sacrifice a lot to live under constant terrorism and warfare. I don't know why it surprises me, but it always kind of does, because I'm just like, how can people find this darkness in themselves? How do people amass this darkness? It's always astounding to me. And despite this really difficult time, what has been amazing to watch for me in your career is how you've been able to counteract all the negativity with the Jewish joy and the Jewish art that you put together. And now you've been playing the role of Carole King, an amazing, legendary Jewish woman. And I
Mhm.
wanted to know what that experience has been like to play Carole King on stage. What have you learned about Carole, and what have you learned about yourself as a Jewish woman?
Yeah. Well, I'll just start off by saying that since October 7th, like I said, I've been very intentional, and telling Jewish stories through art has been something that's been very important and very meaningful to me. Carole King has been an icon and a role model and a legend for me for years as a songwriter. And when I got back into theater and auditioning, and I learned that there is a show about her and about her life, and I was like, okay, well, obviously that's what I'm gonna go for. And it felt like such a good natural fit. So I've been auditioning for different productions of this show for many years, and I've been in many auditions. And I just knew it was a matter of time because I felt so inclined to tell her story. One of the things that I love about this show and this story and her story is that she is unapologetically Jewish. She is Jewish. She changed her last name from Klein to King just to be in the industry at the time in the 50s and 60s. But she's not like, "Oh, yeah, no, I wasn't like," she in her memoir talks all about how her family came to the States and fled Europe, and like she's very open about that. But she doesn't center her entire being about Judaism and being Jewish. She is just there. And she is a Jew and she is a songwriter. And it's the same way that I think she approaches being a woman in the industry. It's like at the time, there were no real, not a lot at least, of female composers. It was very rare. There were a lot of female singers and even lyricists, a little bit more, but she was the composer end of the composer lyricist duo. That happened a lot in Tin Pan Alley during that time, and that was very rare. And she had no reason to be like, oh, I want to do that, I could do that, like there was no inspiration really, and she just did it. She had in her, she found no reason why she shouldn't do it. She grew up learning piano. I think she learned at the age of 4 or something, and she wrote songs, and she was like, well, I'm just going to submit them until one of them gets sold. Like, someone will buy the song, obviously. And I think she sold her first song at like 15 or 16 years old. That perseverance, and like, she never thought, I can't do it because I'm a woman. She never thought, I can't do it because I'm a Jew. She just was who she was, or is who she is, and just went with that. And she is very grateful for the opportunities that she could take on because her family came to the States. I love telling Jewish stories, but there's also a lot of fun in telling a story and, sharing a life of somebody who just happens to be Jewish and is happy that they're Jewish and is proud to be Jewish, but is not the only thing that defines them. Like, I think that's cool too. I think Carole King cares a lot about the world and those around her. And spreading joy. That's kind of what she stands for. Again, I've never met her in real life. I don't know. But from what I have learned from my research and from how I relate to the character in the show, she loves to spread love and light and joy. And that's kind of what she stands for. And I think through this process, I don't know if it's necessarily something I've learned about myself, but it's something that I've brought out more of in myself, of finding that joy and being more positive and optimistic, and which is so hard nowadays. Every time I open Instagram and I look at the news, I'm just like, no, like this is so sad. But I just try to think like, what is really worthy of me getting upset right now? Like walking down the street and someone like cuts me off, or like someone walks really slowly and I'm like, ugh, they're walking, what a tourist. They're walking so slow. I'm gonna be late to work, blah, blah. And I like take a breath. And like I really have noticed that I am more calm and positive and joyful, and just try to bring light and positivity and be that like beacon of light like Carole is. And I try to bring that into my daily life. Yeah.
I think the experience Carole had where she was like, you know what, I'm just going to write my music and I'm sure somebody will buy it. This to me is also kind of similar to how you approach art, because you're like, I will keep trying, I'll just keep putting myself out there and see what sticks. And this relentless positivity and relentless faith that the right things will land on your plate is just a great way to manifest things to come into your life. It's a great frame of mind. It takes the pressure off, and it just teaches you that when it's my time, it will come to me. And I think that's another powerful parallel I see between someone like Carole and yourself.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not easy, right? Like when things are hard, when you don't book the role, when things don't go your way, it's very easy to just say, oh, life is so hard, and just like kind of sink into that. And it's very hard to be like, well, I'm on my path and the right things will come when they come. But like, even with auditioning for this show, again, I auditioned so many times. I've been in so many callbacks for this role that by the time that I actually got it, I was like, off book. Like I already knew the script almost by heart. But I just knew like this role is right for me. I knew it and I felt it. I just kept saying, well, you know what? The more I audition, the more I learn the role, that when I do get it, I'll be that much more comfortable with it. I'll be that much, more off book, and there's certain things that's easier to say than others. Depends on what you're going through in life. Yeah, I try to be that way whenever I can.
What's a message that you have for the Jewish people?
That's hard. A message for the Jewish people. I think a lot of us want a better future and want a calmer future. And I think the best way to achieve that is to live it. We have to do what we do, right? We have to do things like this, stand up for ourselves and speak out and empower each other, but be above the fray. Like it's very easy to get bummed down and to be brought down into these like super degrading debates, quote unquote. And I think just staying above the fray and just living our lives and finding our joy and doing what we do and just keep on keeping on. Prove to the world that the Jews are here to stay. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be a politician. I'm not going to be, work in government. That's just not me. That's not what I do. But everybody has their own individual way of leaving their mark as a Jew in this world. And whether that's creating an incredible podcast or writing a song or being like an online activist or whatever, if we do our thing and we just know in our hearts that we're doing it for the right reasons and we're here to stay and all that, then the world will have to follow suit, I think.
I love that. And tell me, how can people connect with you on social media and learn more about your work?
Yeah, I'm everywhere. I'm on all the social media platforms. You can find me on Instagram at Hadar Baron. TikTok is Hadar Baron Music. On Spotify and Apple Music, like wherever you listen to music, it's just my name, Hadar Baron. I mean, I'm on Facebook. I'm everywhere. So wherever you interact with people, I will be there.
Awesome. And I have one final question for you. It's one that I ask every guest. Who would you like to nominate for People Drew Want to Know?
That's a good one. I think just because I'm in this artsy space, people that I will say are probably also in that artsy space. There's an actress who I've connected with. Her name is Jennifer Apple, and she hosts the Empowered Artist Collective podcast as well. So for another artist perspective, I definitely would recommend her. She's super sweet. There's also my friend Robin Weiss, who is an incredible comedian, and she has a cookbook out, and she's so cool, and she has the cutest dog. So I would recommend her as well.
Wonderful nominations. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please go ahead and rate us 5 stars. Be the first to hear our episodes by subscribing to People Do Want to Know wherever you get your podcasts. And for exclusive content, follow us on Instagram at People Do Want to Know.